Year 11 Economics, Labour Markets. This presentation is on labour market institutions and instruments, with a particular focus on employer associations and industrial instruments. Part 1 of this presentation is about employer associations and the services, roles, and administrations that they provide to the labour market. An employer association is an organisation that is established to represent the interests of firms and businesses, centrally regarding industrial relations and government influence. An example of an employer association could be the Australian Aluminium Council Limited, Cotton Australia, the Australian Industry Group, or the Business Software Alliance. Employer associations provide services to firms, businesses, and employers. These services are utilised to further the interests of member firms. This is done via sharing relevant data and information, such as market forecasts, figures, and strategies. Regulating organised negotiations with trade unions. This is especially evident with the ongoing deliberations between the Qantas employers and employees regarding company restructure and better wage levels.
Australian airline Qantas has grounded all of its flights with immediate effect due to an industrial dispute. The airline's management has been locked in a bitter row with trade unions over plans to restructure the company. Baggage handlers, engineers and pilots have been involved in a series of strikes since September.
As a precautionary measure, we have decided to ground the Qantas international and domestic fleets immediately. I repeat, we are grounding the Qantas fleet now. If the action continues as the unions have promised, we will have no choice but to close down Qantas part by part.
Providing direct advice and assistance to firms and employers. And most importantly, lobbying the government for changes to policy, in particular, reducing government regulations, which is the amount of control the government has over the business, and of course, changing government policies such as taxation and employment laws. With lobbying for government deregulation, a shift right in the demand curve can be seen as firms demand more labour due to the higher cash reserves. There are roles of employer associations in the labour market. Some of these roles can include the representation of the interests of members by campaigning for industry assistance and industrial relations policies, assisting employers in administrating industrial relations matters through representing affiliates in industrial tribunals and committees. The Business Software Alliance is a great example of an Australian employer association. The Business Software Alliance, or the BSA, aims to represent the commercial software industry and its hardware partners, not just in Australia, but also international employers and firms. The Business Software Alliance deals with matters such as piracy, online security, and software rights and responsibilities. Some of their partners include Microsoft, Apple, Adobe, and Autodesk. The BSA was originally founded in 1989 with the rapidly growing commercial software industry. It was originally known as the Business Software Association of Australia, or the BSAA, as it only dealt with Australian matters. However, it began operating on an international scale due to the globalisation of commercial software. The Business Software Association has achieved several significant objectives over the past 23 years. Some of these objectives include successfully won claims against the Uruguayan telecom company Antel Corporation regarding $100,000 worth of illegal computer software. Providing an Australian forum for the controversial Stop Online Privacy Act and supplying influential contributions in the global SOPA conventions. Consistent reductions in both the Australian and the international piracy rate. The rates in Australia have fallen from 28 to 23% in the last 5 years, and in both the United States and the United Kingdom, the piracy rate has fallen almost 2%. Education of the wider community and organising annual meetings such as the Business Software Alliance CTO Forum. Results are also annually released to the public regarding the current status of piracy. This video was released by the BSA earlier last month. Part 2. Industrial Instruments. Part 2 explains industrial instruments, the types that exist, their relationship with the workforce, and an in-depth consideration of the Information Technology Award of 2001. Industrial instruments are methods and mechanisms that regulate relationships between employees and employers, prevent and resolve disputes, and are recognised by law. The three main types of industrial instruments are individual contracts, awards, and collective agreements. Individual contracts are the independent contract between the employer and the employee and take precedent over any other awards or agreements. If there are any disputes between the employer and the employee, then a court of law is used to resolve the issue, rather than an industrial tribunal. Awards are also a main form of industrial instrument. Awards set the minimum wages for the working population. They also set the guidelines for other matters such as leave, discontinuation of employment, complaints, and employment agreements. Collective agreements or enterprise agreements are only allocated to specific employees. They are used as an alternative to awards if they pass the better off overall test, which means that the employee must be better off under the given agreement rather than the comparative award. The percentages of the workforce that the three main industrial instruments cover are individual contracts, 37.3%, awards, 15.1%, and collective agreements, 43.5%. Over the previous 2 decades, the use of industrial instruments has altered. Until the mid to late 1980s, the award rate was the most common in the labour force. However, in the last 20 years, the collective agreement and the individual contract have become the instrument of choice. This is due to the changing economic environments and the way employers choose to operate their businesses. The Information Technology Award 2001 declared the various forms of information technology that were covered under the award. It declared a significantly higher standard for wages, which ranged from $680.50 for a new graduate to $1,031 for a full information technology professional. Other declarations included are work hours, leave and public holidays, employment relationships such as termination of employment, part-time and casual work, the disclosure of qualifications, and the dispute resolution procedure. This ensured the employees covered under the award received the correct conditions and that there was no tolerance for exploitation.